In the middle of a dusty alien city stood a grand auction house. Bright neon lights flashed above it, and loudspeakers shouted out prices. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of oil, sweat, and fear. Aliens from many worlds gathered around. The stage, some wore rich robes. Some had sharp teeth. Some stood tall and proud. But all of them had the same cold eyes, looking for cheap slaves. Today's special item stood on the stage, a young alien girl. Her name was Zaira. Her skin was soft blue, her silver hair messy and long. But what caught everyone's eye wasn't her beauty, it was her missing leg. She stood there, trembling, supported by a crutch made from a piece of wood. Her left leg ended at the knee. There was an old dirty cloth tied around it. The auctioneer, a fat alien with 4 arms and red skin, laughed loudly. His voice echoed through the hall. Half price for the one-legged slave. 1 leg, 1 price. Who wants her? Look at that sad face. Look at those eyes. Half price, friends. Some aliens laughed cruelly. Others shook their heads, not interested. No. One placed a bid. Zaira kept her head down, eyes fixed on the floor. She felt shame, sadness, and fear. Inside, she whispered to herself, "Please, don't let anyone take me again." Suddenly, a human voice broke through the noise. "I'll take her." The room fell silent. Everyone turned. There, standing near the back, was a human man. His name was Ethan Dot. Tall, wearing a dark jacket and simple boots. Ethan didn't look rich. His face was serious, calm. A scar ran down one side of his jaw. His eyes, sharp and clear, didn't show mockery or greed, only something different. Something Zaira couldn't understand. The auctioneer blinked. "You, human. You want this one-legged thing?" Ethan nodded once. "Yes, name the price." The auctioneer grinned widely. 100 credits, cheap as dirt. Without another word, Ethan pulled a card from his pocket and paid. Aliens around whispered and stared. Why would a human buy a broken slave? It made no sense. But Ethan didn't care. He walked up to the stage and looked at Zaira for the first time up close. Her eyes slowly lifted to meet his. For a moment, everything around them disappeared. The noise, the crowd, the cold metal floor. There was only the human and the alien girl. Ethan spoke quietly, his voice steady. "Come with me." Zara didn't answer. Her heart pounded. She had expected someone cruel, someone angry. But this man's voice didn't sound like that. Carefully, she stepped down from the stage, her crutch shaking in her hand. Her body was weak. The stump of her leg hurt with every move. But she followed him. As they left the auction house, some aliens muttered, "Waste of money, human fool." Maybe he likes broken things. Ethan ignored them all. Outside, the sky was gray. Ships flew through the air like giant metal birds. Ethan led Zara to a small ship parked nearby. It wasn't shiny or big, but it looked strong and fast. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. Ethan helped Zaira inside without a word. She waited for him to push her, to chain her, but he didn't. Instead, he gave her a blanket. "Sit down," he said. "You look cold." Zaira sat, confused. Her hands trembled as she pulled the blanket over her thin body. It was warm. Too warm. Ethan sat across from her, watching quietly. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. Her voice was soft and cracked from lack of use. "Zaira." She whispered. Ethan gave a small nod. "I'm Ethan." Silence filled the ship as it lifted off the ground. Zaira stared at him, her mind racing. Why is he being kind? What does he want from me? Ethan seemed to sense her fear. He didn't ask anything more. He didn't touch her. He just piloted the ship through the sky. Slowly, Zaira's eyes became heavy. The blanket's warmth, the soft, hum of the ship. The absence of shouting and chains, all of it, felt like a strange dream. For the first time in years, she felt something close to peace, and as she drifted to sleep, one last thought filled her mind. Maybe not all humans are cruel. The auction house disappeared behind them, swallowed by clouds and stars. But for Zaira, life had already changed forever. Asterisk inside Ethan's ship, there was silence. The engines hummed softly, the stars moving slowly outside the windows. Zaira sat in the corner, wrapped in the blanket Ethan had given her, her eyes half closed, but never fully asleep. She had learned not to trust kindness. Kindness was always a trap. Ethan, sitting in the pilot seat, didn't say much. His hands moved carefully over the ship's controls, but his eyes would often glance toward her reflection in the glass. Hours passed. No orders, no cruel words, no chains. Zaira couldn't hold the question anymore. Her voice was rough but quiet. "Why did you buy me?" Ethan didn't look back immediately. After a few seconds, he answered, "You needed help." That's all. Zaira frowned. That made no sense in her world. "But I'm broken," she said, looking down at her missing leg. Useless. Ethan finally turned toward her. His eyes didn't hold pity, only a strange, calm strength. No one's useless just because they're hurt. Zaira didn't answer. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. Her heart felt too heavy to believe his words. Suddenly, a loud beep came from the ship's control panel. Ethan checked the screen. His face became serious. "Storm ahead," he said. "We'll have to land for now." Zaira's body tensed. Land? Where? Was this part of the trap? The ship gently tilted and descended toward a nearby planet covered in gray clouds. Ethan's piloting was smooth, careful. They landed in the middle of a quiet forest. Tall silver trees shining under a purple sky. The engines powered down. Ethan stood, stretched his arms, and looked at Zaira. "I'm going outside." For a moment. "You can rest here." Zaire didn't move. She expected him to lock the door, to set a guard, drone, anything. But Ethan simply stepped out, leaving the door open behind him. She waited for 5 minutes. 10. The ship stayed quiet, carefully. She stood up on her crutch and limped toward the door. Her metal stump ached, but she forced herself forward. If this was her chance to escape, she had to take it. Outside, the air was cold and clean. The silver trees moved gently with the wind. And there, a few steps away, was Ethan. He wasn't armed. He wasn't looking for her. He was kneeling by a small plant, fixing a broken sensor on the ship's exterior. Zaira froze. Her plan to run suddenly felt foolish. Where would she even go with only one leg? Ethan looked up, saw her standing there, and gave a small nod. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She didn't answer. Then she noticed something. Ethan's hands. They were covered in small scar, signs of hard work, not battle. This wasn't a warrior or slaver. This was a man who fixed things. "Come closer if you want," Ethan said quietly. "I don't bite." Her crutch clicked softly on the ground as she stepped forward, unsure why. The closer she got, the more she noticed things others wouldn't have cared about. Ethan's tools were clean. His ship was old but well kept. And now, standing near him, she realized she was taller than she'd felt on the auction block. Maybe it was the open sky. Maybe it was because no one was shouting orders. Suddenly, her weak leg buckled. Zaira stumbled forward. Ethan caught her by instinct, hands steady around her arms. Careful. Zaira's breath caught in her throat. Being touched usually meant pain. A T. But his grip wasn't hurting her. "Hi. A T. I'm sorry." she whispered. Her silver hair fell into her face. Ethan helped her sit on a nearby rock. Then he crouched down in front of her, looking serious again. "That leg of yours," he said, voice calm. "How long's it been like that?" Zaira looked away. "Years. Anyone ever help you fix it?" She shook her head slowly. "No one cared." Ethan didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "I care." Those two words hit her like a punch. Zaya felt a strange heat in her chest. Her hands clenched around the crutch, unsure how to handle that feeling. Ethan stood and walked back to the ship. "Come on, let's get you inside before the cold gets worse." For the first time, Zaire didn't wait to be ordered. She followed him. Inside the ship, Ethan poured her a cup of warm liquid. Something like tea. Zara took it carefully, warming her hands around the cup, and for the first time in her memory, the silence didn't feel like a prison. It felt like peace. The sky outside was silver blue as Ethan's ship entered orbit over another planet. Zaire sat by the window, her new favorite spot. Days had passed since the auction. Zaire was still silent most of the time, but now she walked without her crutch. She wasn't healed, not yet. Her missing leg still made her stumble, but there was less fear in her steps. Ethan had promised her something, but he hadn't explained it clearly. Only, "We're going to meet someone." Now, Zara watched as they landed on a huge metal platform surrounded by robot towers and glowing neon lights. The air smelled sharp metal, smoke, and engine oil. Ethan walked beside her as the ship's door opened. A voice echoed through the landing bay. "Ethan Carter. Took you long enough." A tall woman walked toward them, wearing a gray mechanic's jumpsuit. Her hair was half-shaved, the other half dyed bright green. Her skin was human, but marked with blue cybernetic lines. One of her eyes glowed bright. Yellow, a mechanical replacement. Zara instinctively moved behind Ethan, holding the wall for balance. "Relax," Ethan said gently. "She's a friend." The woman stopped in front of them, wiping grease off her hands. "Who's the girl?" she asked. One brow raised. "Her name's Zaira. I need something special for her." The woman's sharp eyes looked Zaira up and down. Her gaze wasn't cruel like the auctioneer's. It was measuring, like she was already thinking about sizes and metal pieces. The mechanic woman crossed her arms. "You're serious?" "Yeah." Ethan's voice was steady. "I want a custom cybernetic leg. Lightweight, strong, comfortable. I know you can do it." Lena Zaira's heart raced. A new leg. Was this really happening? Lena clicked her tongue. "That's going to cost you, Ethan. Not cheap. Especially alien tech." Ethan simply said, "Doesn't matter." Zara's eyes widened. She stepped forward now, speaking for the first time in front of Lena. "Why?" Both adults looked at her. Zaira clenched her fists. Her voice shook. But she asked again, "Why would you spend so much on me?" Ethan answered without a pause. "Because you deserve it." Zaira didn't know what to say to that. Lena sighed dramatically, then smiled a little. All right. I like a good challenge. Bring her inside." Inside Lena's workshop, everything smelled like hot metal and machine oil. There were parts everywhere, robot arms, engine cores, and half-built machines. Zaire sat on a clean metal bench as Lena scanned her missing leg using a glowing device. It tickled, and Zira almost pulled away. "Hold still, little one," Lena said, voice softer now. "You've never had a cybernetic before." "No," Zaira whispered. "Well, you're lucky. Old Ethan here has good taste in mechanics." Ethan stood nearby, arms crossed, watching quietly. After a while, Lena showed Ethan a hologram image of a leg, sleek and beautiful, with silver plates and flexible joints. 2 days, Lena said. "That's how long I need to build it." "You're staying here, right?" Ethan nodded. Zara didn't sleep that night. In her small room inside Lena's shop, she stared at the ceiling, wondering if it was all a dream. A new leg. Freedom, kindness from strangers. When she did fall asleep, her dreams were filled with silver trees and running. For the first time, running on 2 legs. 2 days later, Lena called her back into the workshop. The leg was ready. It was laid out on a table, sleek, shining, shaped perfectly for her body. Silver and blue lights pulsed gently across its surface. Zara's heart pounded as she approached it. Her fingers touched the cool metal. "Ready?" Ethan asked quietly beside her. Zara swallowed hard and nodded. Lena helped her onto the bench again. The process wasn't easy. There were wires, pain as old scars were cleaned and connected. Zara bit down on her lip, refusing to cry out. And then it was done. Lena stepped back. "Try standing." For a moment, Zara didn't move. Her mind told her she couldn't, that she'd fall. But Ethan's voice was there, steady as always. "You can do it, Zara." Slowly, carefully. Zara placed both feet one real, one metal on the ground. She stood. The weight felt strange. But balanced, no more crutch, no more stump. Her new leg glowed softly with each small movement. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at Ethan and Lena for the first time. She wasn't half a person. She was whole. The morning lights spilled softly into the workshop. Zara blinked awake. A strange feeling in her body, a mix of hope and fear. She could feel something new, something strong. Her robotic leg. She sat up slowly on the metal bench. The coolness of the machine against her skin, both strange and comforting. Ethan was already there, waiting quietly. His calm eyes met hers as she took her first careful steps without the crutch. The leg moved smoothly, almost like it was part of her. Zara's heart beat faster. For years, she had only known pain, weakness, and fear. Now, something inside her stirred a tiny flame of hope. "Good," Ethan said softly. "You're stronger than you think." But Zara's mind was racing. Could she really live like this? Could she leave behind the past? Outside the workshop, the world was still harsh. The streets were filled with slavers, danger, and cruelty. But here, in this quiet place, for the first time, Zara imagined a future where she wasn't just a broken slave. Ethan stood beside her, watching her with patient eyes. Suddenly, loud noises came from the nearby streets, shouts, metal clashing, footsteps running fast. Both of them turned toward the door. Slavers had found them. Without thinking, Zara moved quickly on her new leg. She surprised herself with how fast and steady she was. The pain that had always held her down was gone, replaced by power. Ethan grabbed a metal pipe and stood in front of her. "Stay close," he said. The door burst open. 3 slavers rushed in, angry and armed. Zara's eyes blazed. She didn't want to be a victim anymore. With a swift kick from her new leg, she knocked one attacker off balance. Ethan swung the pipe, blocking another strike. Together, they fought. Human and alien, side by side. Zara felt something she had never felt before, strength. Not just in her leg, but in her heart. The slavers fled, surprised and beaten. Breathing hard, Ethan looked at Zara. "You're not just saved, you're a fighter." Tears came to Zara's eyes, not from pain, but from joy. Hope had returned. For the first time, she smiled. After the fight, the quiet returned, but not for long. Ethan and Zara knew danger was not far behind. The slavers who lost that night were not the kind to forget or forgive. Days later, night covered the small settlement where Ethan had hidden. Her strange noises echoed outside their door, soft footsteps, whispers, and the occasional metallic clang. Zyra's heart raced. She looked at Ethan, who was already alert, eyes sharp in the dim light. "They're coming," he said softly. They prepared quickly. Ethan armed himself with a makeshift weapon. Zyra tightened the straps on her new leg, feeling its strength. The door rattled. Then, with a crash, it burst open. A group of masked figures stormed inside. Weapons raised. One of them stepped forward, the auctioneer from before. His cruel smile was gone, replaced by cold rage. "You took her from me," he hissed. "Now, I'll take her back." Zyra stood tall, surprising herself with her courage. "I'm not yours," she said, firmly. Ethan raised his weapon. "You'll have to go through me first." A fierce battle began inside the small room. Metal clashed, voices shouted. But this time, Zyra was different. Her robotic leg gave her speed and balance. She dodged attacks and struck back with power. Together, human and alien fought side by side, protecting what they now had. The auctioneer snarled, but as the fight turned against him, he realized something. Zyra was no longer a broken slave. She was strong, free, and ready to fight. With a final shout, the attackers fled into the night. Ethan and Zyra stood panting. The danger passed for now. Zyra looked at Ethan, her eyes shining with new fire. "I will never be anyone's slave." Again, Ethan smiled, "And you never will be." The days after the attack were quiet but tense. Ethan and Zyra knew the slavers wouldn't stop. Their freedom came with a cost. Zyra felt a new strength, but also a new weight. She wasn't just surviving now. She had to protect herself and Ethan too. Ethan spent long hours fixing his ship, preparing for the next move. He wanted to take Zyra somewhere safe, far from slavers and auctions. But supplies were low, and enemies were many. One evening, as the sun set behind jagged mountains, Zyra sat watching Ethan work. She wanted to help, to prove she was more than a rescued slave. "Teach me," she said quietly. Ethan looked up, surprised but pleased. "You want to learn?" She nodded. "I want to be strong. Not just with my leg, but with my mind." So, Ethan began to teach her how to use tools, how to fix small machines, how to read maps. Each day, Zyra grew smarter, stronger, more sure of herself, but danger waited in the shadows. One night, while Ethan slept, Zyra heard a noise, a soft whistle, a faint tapping. She woke and saw a figure near the ship's entrance. Without hesitation, Zyra moved, silent and fast. Her new leg gave her speed and balance. The figure was a spice sent by the slavers. Zyra grabbed a nearby tool and faced the intruder. "Why do you protect her?" the spy asked, voice cold. "Because she's free," Zyra said firmly, "and freedom has a price." The spy sneered and disappeared into the dark. Zyra knew their fight was far from over, but now she wasn't afraid. She was ready. Months had passed since Ethan bought Zyra. Now, the once broken girl stood tall beside him, not as a slave, but as a partner. They returned to the place where it all began, the auction house. This time, they walked inside not as buyers, but as changemakers. The room was filled with whispers and shocked eyes. The auctioneer, once laughing at Zara's missing leg, stared in disbelief. Zara's robotic leg gleamed under the lights. She looked strong, proud, and free. Ethan stepped forward and spoke loud enough for all to hear. "No one is worth less because of their body or past. Freedom is not a price, is a right." He announced they would buy every slave they could find to free them all. The crowd murmured, some angry, some curious. But the message was clear. Zyra smiled a real smile, bright and wide. She had gone from half price to priceless together. They began a new fight, not just for themselves, But for everyone trapped in chains, her past was no longer her story. Her future was freedom, and that future was theirs to build.